One of the things that I've been telling everyone since I've been here, look, I need all the officers to get some community members' phone numbers in their phone. And I need the community members to get officers' numbers in their phone. And it makes a difference. And it also helps in crime because when they have that personal relationship, they'll give you a phone call. They may not call 911. They may not call 311. But they might say, hey, I don't know if this is important, but that third house on the right on my street, I always see them loading boxes in the house late at night. They won't call an emergency number for that, but they'll call you if they know you. And it makes a difference. And the other day, we gave a sticker to a kid and a patch. And I was kind of tired, and I have to give the LT credit. He was like, hey, let's go give this kid a sticker and a patch. And he asked me to do it. And I was like, all right, let me go. And I gave the sticker and patch to this kid. He's probably 6, 7 years old. He hugged me for so long after I gave it to him. And I felt like, wow, I just made a difference. That right there could make that kid become an officer one day. Look, I think a lot of times, and maybe it's just because of who we are as persons, but sometimes we get away from understanding how many people actually love us, want us out there, want us to protect them, want us to take care of the streets. And I think we get wrapped up in, that turd, that suspect, that target. They don't care about us. They don't want us. But it's all those other people who really, really want us and show us the love. And you got to think about those. And it just makes the job so much fun to do because you're making a difference. There was this old lady, elderly lady, sitting on a porch, and you could see her blinking her eyes and winking and twisting her head. So I went up on her porch just to make sure she was okay. And she told me thank you. And she said, all I want to do is sit on my porch and not worry about getting shot. Thank you very much. And that literally has stuck with me ever since 1992-ish, that happened. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to be the very best officer that I could be. And that has driven me to be the very best. When you start out as 21 years old, that's in your brain forever because you're still learning. And I was a Houston policeman at 21. That's in your brain forever. And those 6 years will never go away. So I was able to draw back from that experience and then tie it in with the Fed experience. And look, there's going to be some people that's going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay because some change is good. Overall, I'm looking forward, and I think we're going to make Dallas PD even better than what it was.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
The 1970s in New Orleans were a period of significant transformation and challenges. The city experienced both progress and setbacks, grappling with racial tensions, economic shifts, and the emergence of the new cultural movements. A key event was the rise of Poydras Street and the construction of a building so large that it had to be called the Superdome, which symbolized the city's ambition for economic growth. The city continued to grapple with racial inequality, but also saw progress in areas like the election of the first black mayor, Ernest Dutch Morial, in 1978. The 70s in New Orleans were also influenced by the broader counterculture movement, with elements of the Summer of Love era finding their way to the city. This included the presence of hippies and alternate social spaces in the French Quarter. New Orleans is divided up into 17 wards. each of them having their own unique historical cultural markers that have shaped this great city. The 7th Ward is known for its rich Creole culture, as some of the elegant Creole-style mansions can still be seen along the Esplanade. The ward is also known for its association with the jazz music scene, producing notable figures like Jelly Roll Morton and Sidney Bechet, while the 9th Ward played a significant role in the civil rights movement, being the first location where Ruby Ridges integrated the William France Elementary School. Both of these wards will see significant damage as the levees failed and the Hurricane Katrina hit land back in 2005. And during the 70s, the streets of these wards will be strolled by a young man that would ultimately dedicate his life to service of others. As a young adult and armed with a criminal justice degree, today's guest will make his way to Houston PD to dip his toe in the crime-fighting and service world. After gravitating to combating the ugly world of narcotics and HPD, he would leave this city to take a higher step in the war against drugs as he joined the historic Drug Enforcement Agency. The rise of this guest is quite remarkable as he investigated just about every type of narc crime and drug, and has slowly, methodically climbed the ranks to lead the men and women of this great agency. But in April 2025, he would take off his federal badge for the last time and return to his crime-fighting roots. He would put on a different badge, a historic badge, for a historic department in the heart of Texas. We are honored to sit down with the 31st Chief of the Dallas Police Department. Chief Daniel Comeaux, welcome to the stage.
Happy to be here, brother.
Man, been wanting to get you on here, but I know you're extremely busy. You just got here in April, and the hot part of the summer hasn't even shown up yet.
I got here in April, and I've been working for DPD for about 3 years right now. And wait, I'm sorry, it's been 6 weeks.
It ages in dog years here. Yeah, I can't imagine that spot. I do want to thank you for coming out to Bags for Badges for the ATO. It was our 10th annual at Gillies. You were a big hit, and I want to just say I appreciate you supporting us like that. You and Chief Ball coming out and staying whole night, taking photos of people, shaking all the hands. That means a lot to us that you supported us like that.
Well, I was happy to do it, and I was really excited when they played the right walk-up song for me.
Which is?
Big Papa.
Yeah.
So I asked Gabe if he would play that in Comstat Monday morning, and he said, I'm not even going to be there. But did it happen?
No, it didn't. But that would have made me laugh.
I thought it would have been great, man.
That would have made me laugh.
That's my ringtone for you.
I like it. That's why I'm going to call you in the middle of the night and see how that goes for you. Yeah.
My wife did laugh when that came on, and she says, "Of course, big." Anybody that started in law enforcement in the 90s.
That's it.
Yeah. No.
Back when I was getting off duty and taking off the uniform and take a quick shower and go hit the club, Big Papa was playing.
Big Papa. I got to ask you this though. Speaking of BIG, did you ever read that book Labyrinth?
No, I'm not a reader, brother.
Okay, all right. I'll get
but
you
if
the
it's
audio.
on audiobook, I'll listen to it.
I'll get it to you. It's pretty interesting about Tupac's and Biggie's murder, and it's done by the LAPD investigator, the detective at the time that was looking into it, and he had some interesting connections with Death Row Records, and it's a good book.
Yeah, I saw a couple different movies or documentaries on a TV, but I didn't read the book.
A lot of people forget how big a deal that was back then.
Look, you had two legends that was, they would have been complete legends if they would have lived their life out just from what they had already did before they died.
No, their music holds up still.
Yeah, and then West Coast, East Coast, so that makes it even more of a competitive nature. Yankees, Boston Red Sox.
You grew up in New Orleans, though, so it was Cash Money Records, right?
Yes, sir. Master P. Let me say, nah.
Speaking of New Orleans, let's talk about home life. Growing up, 7th and 9th Ward, can you tell us about early home life for you?
So I was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, moved to New Orleans when I was about 4 years old, just me and my mom. Don't know my biological dad. He was an abusive marriage, and she left him, so it was just me and her. She still apologizes to me this day for raising me on $70 a week, And I'm like, hey, it's all good, Mom. We started at the bottom. Now we're here. So it worked out. Started off in the 7th Ward in Port Chester. For those from New Orleans wanted to stand it off of St. Bernard, and then we moved to the east. And when we moved to the east, man, we thought we were moving on up. I thought we were rich at that point, and now you go back there, and it's nothing but gunshots every single day.
Yeah, I did in preparation for this. I did a little bit of history on the 7th and 9th Ward and just the rich and culture and the Creole culture out there, and I know they got hit very hard in Katrina in 2005.
Yeah, look, after Katrina, I was living in Houston, and I had 24 people living in my house until they can get back on their feet. I was very happy that I was able to do that, but boy, 24 people in one house.
Yeah.
Whew.
Saints fan growing up?
Who that nation all day long.
Oh,
Man,
yeah?
maybe I shouldn't say that being in Dallas, but the great part is, say the media hasn't really asked the right question. They keep saying Dallas or Houston Texan. Oh, Dallas all day long.
Right.
But who that nation for life?
Yeah, no, I know. Hey, it's like when people ask me, I say Dallas Cow. I grew up here. That's my team. But looking back at the Houston Oilers, I love the Houston Oilers. They were probably my second favorite team.
Yeah.
So did you like them when you were out? Because that's when you were just getting going in HPD.
Look, when it comes to football, look, you're from New Orleans. You're diehard New Orleans Saints fan, except for goddamn Lil Wayne. I don't know what happened to Lil Wayne. We need to get him on this show so we can ask that.
We'll hook it up. We'll get him on.
Yeah, get him on. Let's go.
I think he's actually been emailing trying to get on. We'll get to him.
Yeah. We'll eventually get to his email. So I did read that you have a love for baseball. Can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, so my old man put me in baseball, who I called Dad. My mom remarried, and he's an amazing man. And he did a great job. Without him, I'm dead or in jail. There's no doubt. I remember I came home, and I said, hey, Dad, I want to learn how to play the saxophone. And I had a little flyer, and I think it was like $50 a week. And that was for the saxophone rental and 2 lessons. And he was like, boy, we can't afford that. And he said, but I got something for you. And I was like, okay, what's that? He said, I'm going to put you in baseball. And I was like, baseball? Everybody around here plays football and basketball. And he said, that's why I want you to learn how to play baseball. And he said, and that costs $35 for a season. So he put me in baseball, and it started from there. Went on, played high school ball and played college ball. Went to St. Louis, where I played JUCO ball there because I didn't have the grades to go D1 out of high school. And then I ended up at Southwest Texas State playing.
Kent's got a note on that.
Well, number one, eat 'em up cats. Alumni also.
Wait. See, I played baseball. I didn't graduate there. You actually graduated from there?
It took me 5.5 years,
Okay,
but yes,
that
I did. That river is awfully tempting, and all my classes were right by it. So there were days where you walk to campus and you're like, it's just too nice out. I'm just going to stop and hang out at the park.
Yeah, I definitely had some of that there too.
Did you know Mark Villarreal was catcher at Southwest Texas State University?
Yeah, he told me that. He made sure he told me that.
Did he?
He's awfully proud of it, but he was a hell of a ball player too, and just a tremendous athlete. I mean, if you have ever seen that guy move, he still to this day could do anything he wants to.
Yeah, well, I'm not that much of an athlete anymore, but back in the day.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
position did you play?
Center field.
Oh, wow. You have to be quite the athlete to play that.
Oh, I
fast.
used to be fast.
Yeah? Okay.
No, I keep saying used to be
Well,
fast.
hey, we're all there. We used to be a lot of things at this table.
In my mind, I still think I'm an athlete, but yeah, not so much.
You're playing ball. What got you interested in wanting to go in law enforcement?
Well, I was playing and ended up getting hurt, needed reconstruction shoulder surgery. And one of my teammates' dad was a sergeant at HPD, and I always give him a shout out. It was Sergeant Herman. And I always give him a shout out because he asked me, hey, what are you going to do now? And I was like, I'm going to rehab and come back. And then he kind of looked at me and I said, oh, you know what? I'll be a police officer like you. And literally the next week he bought me an application. And I was like, what's this for? And he's like, he said you're interested in being a police officer. We're hiring. And at that time, look, it's not like these days. You had a long waiting list to become an officer. And I fill out the application, and I got a phone call from the recruiter, and they're like, "Hey, you're highly recommended. Can you come take the PT test?" And I was like, what's the PT test? And he told me. I was like, "Oh yeah, I can pass that even with the hurt shoulder." And I went down there and passed the PT test, and he was like, "This application's terrible." And I looked at it and it looked like one of the papers I wrote in 8th grade. There was so much red marks on it. So we went over it and we completed it a little bit better, and they started doing a background on me, and they called me up on a Saturday, and the date sometime in August. It was a Saturday. They called me up and they said, "Hey, someone just dropped out of our academy. Are you interested in starting with HPD?" And I was like, "Okay, can I think about it?" He's like, "No, you don't have time to think about it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You'd have to be here Monday at 6 a.m. And I was like, "Monday, 6 a.m.? It's Saturday right now." He's like, "I'll give you 30 minutes to think about it. Call me back." Talked to my parents, and I remember my mama saying, "Boy, that job has benefits. You need to go." And I called him back, and I said, "Hey, I'm all in. Let's do this." And I packed up my little S10 Blazer and rode to Houston. Didn't know a thing about Houston, and that Sunday, I found me a place to live and started the academy that Monday morning.
What was Houston PD's size back then when you got there?
It had to be over 5,000.
No kidding. They've been that big that long. I mean,
well, they're down now. I think they're at 5 now, and I think it rose maybe close to 6. We'd have to look it up to be certain.
That's a big department, man. And a lot of people, when they think of PDs in Texas, I really think that they don't realize how big Houston is. They're number 4, I believe.
Number 4, and they're about to move to number 3.
Really?
Yeah, they're going to pass Chicago up. But here's the thing, and I hope everyone from Houston's listening.
Listen up.
Dallas PD is number 1 in Texas. Let's make that clear.
That's right.
And look, I didn't realize how much respect Dallas PD has across the world, really, because even when I got this job, I had some international people reach out from Connects, and they're like, "Hey, you're at Dallas PD, maybe we can use some training from you guys." So it's pretty cool.
Now, going back to Houston, you had an interest in narcotics fairly quickly. Is that right?
Yes.
And so
I'm feeling like you did some research on this now. I don't know, unless you're just getting lucky.
No, I did I do a lot of guessing here. No, so I know that you got in to narcotics, but I will say in the early 90s here in Dallas, we had the vicious Jamaican drug wars going on. Was that going on in Houston as well? Yeah,
you had Jamaican drug wars, and you also had Colombian wars going on where you had a whole bunch of tongues hanging out of necks in the early 90s. Colombian bow tie.
Yeah, that was going on here, and I think I went back, our history here. I think in 93 and 94 we had over 500 murders in that year, and that was going on nationwide from Florida to California and on down to the border.
Yeah, you definitely had more than one murder a day in a lot of cities back then.
Yeah, drug related.
Well, in Houston being close to the port, or basically being a port city, us being more mainland, I bet you guys had a lot of the Colombian and Cuban and everybody else coming through, and a lot of traffic back and forth between them and the Jamaicans. So,
yeah, well, you had a lot of turf wars going on because the cocaine's coming from Colombia, but it has to stop in Mexico for the most part to get to the United States. So that's where your wars really started. The Colombians that were in the States felt like, yeah, this is coming from my country. And then you had some of the Mexican cartels saying, yeah, but we're bringing it into the United States. And so money was being lost there because they had to pay the middleman, which were the Mexican cartels, to get into the United States. And that's what started a lot of the wars.
So when you went into narcotics, just undercover, working street squads, is that what it was like?
I started off in the street squads, and it wasn't easy for me because I only had, right about 2 years on the job, a little less than 2 years. So you had a lot of senior officers that was really angry and mad that I got the position. And I remember being at gas pumps where you had officers complaining. And I was like, well, wait a minute, did you put in for the job? No, but a rookie shouldn't be doing it. I was like, well, shut up.
Yeah.
So,
We had that here, and there was a big push at the time, even with narcotics, is they had to beef it up because of the drug wars, and then they were pulling people with like 2 to 3 years on and going there, and the same with SWAT. SWAT had a bunch of young cats. Jonica, he went over there, I think after 2 years on the streets, and he was already in SWAT.
yeah, that's exactly what happened. So in Houston, they came up with the street level narcotics, and they took over approximately 200 at the same time, or maybe 150 at the same time, to put different street level squads in each area. So that kind of opened up the door for me to get in.
We don't have 200 people in our narcotics division, period. I don't want to give away too many trade secrets, but to bring over 150 or 200 people at once would be a massive undertaking just to train them and get everything going. There's so much that we do to ensure that everything's above board. That would be a giant move.
Yeah, I think asterisk, there's going to be some changes to the narcotics unit here.
I've been waiting.
It's coming.
No, I that was the first thing I thought about whenever you got this position. I have to ask you this because I know how it went here. There was a lot of to combat violence, you have to have an aggressive style when you're hitting some of these trap houses because they get very creative in their methods to keep us out. We had narcotics folks basically doing no-knock warrants, doing the warrants themselves, and the training here at that time was not up to par as far as training for these entries and these executing these warrants. Was that going on there? Because everybody was pushed in, and SWAT ended up getting better training after some tragedies that happened on some ops here.
Yeah, I think look in the early '90s, they started really barricading these doors, and I think that's where you really started seeing a lot of problems, especially with our tactics and what we were trained on. These doors were being barricaded, and you're just a street level squad. You're not SWAT running. And then you started getting a lot of shootings through windows.
Yeah.
And, the bad part for the officers is you don't know what you're shooting at because you can't see, but you're taking rounds from inside a window. And I actually, was on a few scenes where that actually happened, and it's very uncomfortable because you don't know what you're shooting at, but you're being shot at.
You got to have a sight picture to return.
And that's your problem, right?
Yeah.
You can't just shoot in there, but you're taking rounds. And the whole barricading doors started in the early 90s, and it went through the 90s, and it made it tough. And it comes down to that training, right? SWAT's more prepared to deal with that than just a street level squad. Although street level squads back then, we would run 2 to 3 search warrants a day.
And still not barely make a dent in what was actually the houses that were out there selling.
Yeah, very true.
So like I said, we had some tragedies here because of it was, looking back, lack of training. But when you're in the middle of it, you only know what you know, and you just kind of have to work with what you have.
No, absolutely. But training is so important, and that's one of the things that, even here in Dallas right now, I'm really going to take a hard look at our fugitive units, our narcotics units, and seeing how we're executing the warrants. I know we have the whole, threat matrix that's across the United States now, but you really have to look at who's running the warrants and what type of training they're getting, because we have to make sure we put ourselves in positions to, first of all, keep ourselves safe and effectively, make some good arrests. So the training is so important, and you got to be up to par on your skills to run warrants.
Agreed. Honestly, our job, people that work under you in the training section, the SWAT and narcotics, and even going down here to the wellness unit, our job is to keep our people safe as they can. That way you do not have to go and hand over a flag, folded flag to a family member.
And that's one of my top priorities. My whole time here, I hope I never have to do that.
Well, we hope you don't either, boss. So you're in the middle of the drug wars there in Houston, and you make a job change. You ended up going to the FAIN Drug Enforcement Agency. Started in the early 70s against the war on drugs, Nixon's big push. Were you always looking to go to the federal side, or that just kind of come up?
No, I can tell you exactly how it came up. I remember it was 1995, and I was part-time working on a task force group. And this one agent stood up, and I remember he slapped his hands. He said, "I finally made it." And I was like, "Made what?" Because you never make a case. And he said, I'm making six figures. And I said, you're making six figures? He said, you don't even put anybody in jail. And at that moment, I backed out of that squad and I went straight to the recruiter. And I said, hey, man, I hear y'all make six figures. He says, after 5 years, you'll make six figures. And at the time with, HPD, I'm working extra jobs and overtime and I'm making 60 grand. I'm working my butt off. And I looked at this cat and I'm like, this dude's making six figures. He don't even put anybody in jail. So I said, wait, what I need to do to become an agent? He was like, do you have a degree? I was like, no, I left college. Well, I need about 24 hours. He said, go get a degree and come back. So that next day I went to the University of Houston downtown, gave him my transcripts and entered the next semester, got my degree 1 year later, went back to him, said, here's my degree, and ended up getting hired.
So you went back to college while you were actively working narcotics and managed to carry 12 hours a semester?
I did. I needed, I think, 27 or 28 hours, and I did it over 2 semesters in the summer.
That's a lot of work. I mean, narcotics is obviously a pretty easy job. Everybody can do it, right? You just show up and walk around. But on top of everything you're doing there, going to school, and it's not the easy classes at that point, right? You didn't have any PE credits left, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I took a lot of PE when I was at Southwest Texas in junior college, but I couldn't take PE at U of H downtown.
PE is a fun class. I'm not going to knock it. But.
All right, so we got to talk about the PE classes because this is a joke amongst me and my kids. Because I tell them, I say, hey, Daddy has a pretty high GPA. And so my son looked at my transcript. He was like, man, you have almost 20 hours of PE. How did you pull that off? I was like, hey, see, when you're on scholarship, you can take as many hours as you want.
A lot of basketball and bowling.
Hey, you got to use a little ingenuity. You got to be creative. Keep that GPA up.
That's eligibility.
Well, it clearly worked out for you.
Yeah,
I do want to talk about, you mentioned something offline that, man, it resonated with me because I have been in that same situation and we're talking about combating the drug war and these dealers because it's ever evolving. The threats are also ever evolving for not only law enforcement but also for the communities that have to actually live amongst these neighborhood terrorists. You told a story about on one of your ops running into a little old lady that it kind of impacted you. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, we had I think it was a shots fired call, and we went out there and you had turds on both sides of the streets, and they had shot at one another, and we got there and we regulated the streets. It was in the early 90s. We made sure everything was calm before we left, and a few people went to jail, some people in the back seat, and there was this old lady, elderly lady, sitting on a porch, and you could see her blinking her eyes and winking and twisting her head. And so I went up on her porch just to make sure she was okay, and she told me thank you. And she said, all I want to do is sit on my porch and not worry about getting shot. Thank you very much. And that literally has stuck with me ever since 1992-ish, that happened. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to be the very best officer that I could be. And that has driven me to be the very best. It's starting off from that simple gesture, simple story, but I understood how much it meant to her. And I put my mother and I put my grandmothers in my mind who I've never met, but that popped up in my head. Like, you should be able to sit on your porch no matter where you live.
No, absolutely. Because they are we as officers and agents, you do your work and you get to go home and you don't have to live in the daily hell that some of these people have to live in. And that poor old lady, she probably lived there her whole life.
I'm sure, without a doubt.
And she saw so much change, and then that's community impact.
Yep, absolutely. That was in 3rd Ward, Houston. I'll never forget it.
It's important to have those experiences, though, and to figure out who you're actually working for in police work, because too often our days are filled with dealing with turds, right? And you deal with the bad part of society over and over again, especially if you're a little more proactive and not responding to calls and taking reports. You have to remember that there are people out there that are impacted by your work in a positive manner. Not just the guys you're arresting, but the people that they're affecting.
Look, I think a lot of times, and maybe it's just because of who we are as persons, but sometimes we get away from understanding how many people actually love us, want us out there, want us to protect them, want us to take care of the streets. And I think we get wrapped up in, that turd, that suspect, that target. They don't care about us. They don't want us. But it's all those other people who really, really want us and show us the love. And you got to think about those. And it just makes the job so much fun to do because you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're making a difference in so many lives, and it could be not even just the older people that live there, the adults. Imagine all the kids that you put them in a better place where they can actually grow up and survive and have a chance.
Look, one of the things that I've been telling everyone since I've been here, look, I need all the officers to get some community members' phone numbers in their phone. And I need the community members to get officers' numbers in their phone. And it makes a difference. And it also helps in crime because when they have that personal relationship, they'll give you a phone call. They may not call 911. They may not call 311. But they might say, hey, I don't know if this is important, but that third house on the right on my street, I always see them loading boxes in the house late at night. They won't call an emergency number for that, but they'll call you if they know you. And it makes a difference. And the other day, we gave a sticker to a kid in a patch. And I was kind of tired, and I have to give the LT credit. He was like, hey, let's go give this kid a sticker and a patch. And he asked me to do it. And I was like, all right, let me go. And I gave the sticker and patch to this kid, probably 6, 7 years old. He hugged me for so long after I gave it to him. And I felt like, wow, I just made a difference. That right there could make that kid become an officer one day. And he wouldn't let my leg go. And I was like, all right, buddy, I got to go now. Yeah. You want me to give you another one? But it actually touched me, man. And when I got home that night, I told my wife the story and it touched me. And I had to tell it again right now because it made a difference.
No, and that kid, there's no telling what that meant to him. I mean, obviously we're sitting here how many days later and we're talking about it on the show. Imagine who that kid still thinking about it.
Yeah.
He sees you on TV. That's our chief in our city.
It makes me feel good.
How could it not? So you got in the DEA and you were doing investigations at street level in a major city. When you go to DEA, it's from a larger view with more in-depth type investigations, correct?
It is, but what was interesting for me, I started off in Oakland, California, and my special agent in charge at the time, she told me, she said, hey, I'm going to put you in a really bad situation. I was like, what's bad? And let me back up a little bit. I was supposed to go to Bakersfield, California at first. And I didn't even know what Bakersfield, California was.
I still don't.
So I got to tell you a funny story about that, though. I was in the academy, and it was back then they gave us our assignments like a week or 2 weeks before you actually went to the location. So they told me Bakersfield, California. And I was like, Baker's what? I never even heard of it. And I called my dad, and he happened to know about it because he worked for a mobile oil company. And he was like, oh, it's like farmland and oil. There's nothing there. And he's like, it's north of California. So in my mind, I kind of say, oh, north of California, palm trees, beaches. All right. I'm not a West Coast guy, but we're going to make this work.
Yeah.
And so I walked out in the hallway, and the FBI National Academy was going on. And I see this gentleman walking towards me, and he has a cowboy hat and boots on. And he looked at me and said, how you doing now? I heard you're going to Bakersfield, California. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, there's not many folks like you there. And I said, oh, okay. There's not many agents? He says, no, like you. I'm the sheriff in Bakersfield.
Wow.
And I was like, oh. And he was super nice. And then I found out there's not many brothers in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
But it was super cool, right? The way the conversation was going. And so it was funny when it happened.
Right.
And he wasn't saying anything out of line, nothing bad. He was just being real.
Yeah, he was telling you how it was.
He was just telling me how it was, you know? And I was like, man, I didn't know California had cowboy boots and hats. So it's this little pocket cowboy boots and hats. And so then it goes to the DEA. I get a phone call from the special agent in charge, and she says, hey, I'm thinking about switching you to, but she said, look, we have to do a few things, and you would have to agree to this. I was thinking about switching you to Oakland, California. I said, yes, ma'am. I was like, yes, ma'am.
How many people they actually were knocking down Oakland's door to get there?
Not many.
Right.
Not many. But for me, I'm from New Orleans. I'm a city dude. And I'm like, yo, yes, ma'am, I'll go. And she says, look, I'm putting you in a very tough situation. And I was like, ma'am, I'm all in. And she's like, well, hear me out first. And I was like, ma'am, I'm in. I'm Oakland. I'm ready. And she's like, well, the task force, I'm going to put you in a task force. And the PD does not like the agents there. They don't get along. And I was like, ma'am, I'm all in. Bring it on. Let's go. And so I reported to Oakland, and it was kind of a standoff. All the officers, they were like, yeah, we don't mess with feds, basically. And I was like, look, man, I'm HPD. I'm used to PD. Like, I've been a fed for 1 week. I've been PD for 6.5 years, and end up having the best relationship with the Oakland task force, and we absolutely crushed it out there.
Well, it was busy, I would imagine. I mean, I've read things.
Oh yeah, it's busy.
Yeah.
Oakland, there was a lot going on in Oakland. Let's say that.
Well, back in the 90s and early 90s and mid 90s, it was literally the rise of gangs and gang. I remember that movie Colors came out, and still love it. And it kind of started on the West Coast, and everything gravitated across it was swept across the country.
Yeah, Ice-T, boy.
Yeah.
And it started off with law enforcement. That made a lot of law enforcement mad.
Of course. So what are some of the types of, how was it different, though, once you got to the DEA, the types of investigation that what you were used to on the street rips?
Look, longer term. Instead of running down the street and arresting 1 or 2, we started walking down the street and arresting 20, 30, and 40. And that's what really made it fun for me. When I started doing investigations where I wouldn't have to make the arrest that day or that week, and we can go down and, take 6 months. And then after 6 months, we were arresting 50 people. And when you go in there and swoop them all up, look, there's going to be a fight to gain their positions, but you made a difference for a while.
No, and it's, did you have to learn that patience, though, to let things unfold for the bigger picture?
No, absolutely. It took time because, when you're 21, 22, and you're going to narcotics at 23 and you do it for 4 years, that's the way you do it. And then you're coming from a really big police department that has a large narcotics unit, you felt like you knew it all already. So I kind of had some chips on the shoulder, and then I realized what you could do on the federal government side, and it made it fun blending the two together. And
you talked about the great relationship eventually with Oakland, the PD, and then the agency. I think a lot of movies still to this day, a lot of the 80s movies especially, the feds are here. And they always try to portray it as a huge headbutting back and forth with local law enforcement and any federal agency, whether FBI, DEA, CIA, whatever you're dealing with. And I have never had that interactions. And I've been here 28 years, and I've dealt with multiple agencies, and we always had great relationships.
Yeah, all through my career, we've had great relationships. That's more on the TV, more in the movie. When there's a problem, it's more because the feds want to walk down the hill and local law enforcement want to kind of run a little bit faster. So that's where sometimes the problem comes in, but it's never at the ground level. It's more maybe at the chief and the special agent in charge level where we're saying, hey, we got to wrap this up because we have to do this. And then the special agent is saying, well, let's slow it down because we have to deal with the U.S. attorney. But it's never at the troop level.
But the bigger bang for the buck, though, because, I worked out in South Dallas all those years, you're getting a lot of the low-level dealers. Up in the DEA, you're going after suppliers.
Yeah. Look, the biggest thing, federal to local, state, it's once you have a drug dealer that's been arrested a couple times and convicted, and we grab him federally, he can go to jail. As I used to tell him in interviews, you can go to jail for life. And if you drop the foe, it's still life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's much different. Cause you go to certain counties and you never know, and that's where you see the repeat offenders.
Yeah.
But also dealing with our Fed partners, that there's a lot of people they don't want to go that route, and then they will make the investigation expand.
yeah,
Yeah,
look, it's if the great thing is when you work together, you take the best of both worlds. If you need to take someone off fast, you drop them in the state. If you can take your time and be patient, you walk down the hill and you get them a whole much longer sentence. So, and look, on the ground level, I think it always works perfectly fine. It always works fine. I think the movies are just overplaying it because it's
I
movies.
agree. What are some of the stops that you went through DEA?
I don't know if the show's this long. Can we go on?
Come on. Yeah, you're the
So-
busy one. I'm good.
So I started off in Oakland, did 2 years there, went to Houston, did 8 years in Houston. Then I started promoting, went to Tucson, Arizona, did 3 years in Tucson. Then I went to Gulfport, Mississippi, did 3 years in Gulfport. Went to Washington, D.C., and I didn't lose anything there, so I only did a year there, a little less than a year. And then I went to Jackson, Mississippi. And from Jackson, Mississippi, I went to Los Angeles, did 2 years in Los Angeles. Then I went to San Francisco, did a year in San Francisco, and then back to Houston, where I did 4+ years. And now I've done 6 weeks. That equals to 3 years in Dallas.
Yeah, and more to come.
But
Yeah.
I'm loving every freaking second of it.
Good. Well, we're here. We're here to support you in whatever you need.
And I felt the love. And I know it's without doubt that when I came in, there's a whole bunch of officers that was like, why are we getting the Fed to be our chief? There's no doubt. And like I'll tell anyone, just give me a chance. And we're going to enjoy this ride together. We're going to have fun.
Any outsider is kind of looked at, scrutinized heavily, right? We don't like outsiders coming into any law enforcement division. If you had a guy that was from Dallas and came in to be the SAC over the DEA, you guys would be like, hold on, look at this guy real quick. Like, what's going on? So while we were a little apprehensive, I think a lot of people, once we looked at it, we were like, okay, like this is something we can work with pretty quick.
No, 100%. And you're absolutely right? If a local, and it's happened before, where state police became the whole director of DEA, and everyone in DEA was freaking out when it happened. That was right when I came on. And we've also had attorneys that became the number one in DEA, and boy, we really freaked out.
I'd imagine.
So I get it, and I embrace the fact that a lot of officers were freaking out, and it's no biggie to me. It's like, all right, it's just another challenge, and we're gonna roll through it and make it happen.
You get your first SAC gig in San Fran?
Yes, I was a deputy SAC in L.A., so I was basically would be like your 3-star here.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was in Los Angeles. So on the federal side, it's called an SES, and that's kind of when you get your wings to your chief wings, essentially, if you're bringing it to the local level. And in L.A., I was running the state of Nevada, Hawaii, Guam, and Saipan, and then L.A. Haida and Riverside. So that fell all under me, that area there in Los Angeles. And then I became special agent in charge in San Francisco. That was when I had total control.
Nice. And then you continued that on to Houston.
Right. Houston's considered a super SAC job for DEA. There's Houston, Los Angeles, and New York, where we all have 2-3 stars under us in those locations. And then we have a few others like Chicago and Atlanta that has 1 3-star under you.
Well, yeah, now that you're talking about the rank and the hierarchy there. So for the listener, even for me, just to educate me, because we have a lot of civilian listeners to this, would you kind of explain what a SAC is, and then below and how it goes on down, just kind of the rank and hierarchy?
Absolutely. So special agent in charge, and I'll use Houston as an example. As a special agent in charge, I had 114 counties under me, to include Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Laredo, McAllen, Waco, Beaumont, Galveston, El Paso, and Del Rio. So that all fell under my supervision. And I left out Brownsville. Can't leave out Brownsville. So that all fell under me. And then I had 2 associate special agents in charge, which would be like a 3-star. And then we have what's called an assistant special agent in charge. And that would be more like your 1-star for the amount of span that they have. And then you have a resident agent in charge, which our resident agent in charge would handle like an office like Waco, Galveston, Beaumont. So on the average, they would have like 12 counties that fell under their supervision. And then you had a group supervisor, which would be like a sergeant, where they have the groups under them, and then you have the special agent.
That's pretty thorough. Well, hey, for the listener, I didn't even prep him before this, and he rolled that right. He knows the stuff. He clearly.
See,
knows
now you're
the
making
stuff.
me feel good.
Yeah.
Well, I lived it for 28 plus years. So.
Yeah. So I do want to get into the, we all watch the news and we know the trends, and I want to get into the challenge of the fentanyl epidemic in this country.
Look, here's the thing. When you talk about agents and officers, all we want to do is arrest everybody that's really doing bad. We just want to throw every single person in jail. And we do a really good job at doing that. We do an excellent job at doing that. The thing with the fentanyl, I think what it did is it opened up a lot of eyes to where the education and awareness piece of it became so important. Where we had to get out there, even though we were carrying a gun, we really had to go to schools. We had to go to nonprofit organizations and really start spreading the message about these counterfeit pills. Look, the drug cartels don't give a darn about you. They don't care. It's all about dollar bill. It's all about making money. And they don't care about how many people die because they know there'll be someone else to take their place. So we needed to go out and really educate the public about this. And once we started educating the public and we were putting people in jail, we started seeing a difference. We started seeing a reduction in fentanyl. And I'm really proud to say one of the accomplishments that my team had was in Laredo. We had a reduction of 40% of overdose in Laredo. And that really came from the education side and the awareness side, along with the enforcement side. But we took every single meeting that we could with schools, and the agents were freaking amazing, watching them going in the schools, going into nonprofits, and also just talking and giving that whole awareness piece of it. And I think it's going to stand there in Laredo. I don't think that number is going to go back up, and it's mainly because of the education and awareness piece.
Is that the one pill can kill? What is that? Can you explain that initiative?
Yeah, it's talking about the education and awareness side of it, and it was a huge campaign, and it was all over the place, and I truly think it made a difference.
Yeah, I think it's education in anything is key. No matter what the crime, the more the public is educated. But this the lethality of this fentanyl is something that really we had not seen. I mean, there's been heroin overdoses been going on and the opioids for forever, but this fentanyl is just different, a different feel.
Yeah. So part of the thing with the fentanyl, and I call them mad scientists, chemists. You can make it in your garage. You can buy the equipment and make it in your garage. So you have these milligrams that can kill, like grains of sugar. You put too many grains of sugar, you're dead. And you have someone that's making that, with a scoop, and they're scooping it, making it in their garage. That's why I call them mad chemists. And then they go on the street and sell them. Well, 70% of those pills at one point could cause an overdose because it's not a multi-million-dollar machine making them. It's pill press you can buy off a line.
Yeah,
garbage.
I want to echo that education piece, and if we can do anything from this platform to give any more messages on that topic, we're happy to do that, because we're all in this big ecosystem. We're here sitting here with a mic and telling a life story and a career story. But if we can educate in any way, we would like to do that.
I actually like the setup. I feel kind of high class, but that'd be great. We can use this as a platform. I don't know. See, you probably haven't done like live video in here, but so your listeners can see how high tech this is.
High tech. Okay. Well, you saw how we started this show with the mics that we had in the early episodes.
It was like my first Sony.
Yeah, and it had like the Mr. Microphone, Mike talking into?
Well, that's what I was kind of expecting when I came in, but I got this big microphone in front of my face,
and you got a Batman here with it watching it. So
I got to take a picture with that Batman.
You will, yeah, yes, please.
Get that on social media for me.
So 28 years in DEA. How hard was it to just finally say, okay, I want to go a different path in life and take off that badge?
So probably, excuse me, when I was in Jackson, Mississippi, I started putting it in the back of my mind that I wanted to end my career in local law enforcement. And I was like, what is going to make me uniquely qualified to come from the Fed ranks back to the local ranks? And I was very intentional from that point on. I wanted to really diversify my career by moving around, because when I felt like when I would sit down in front of a mayor or a city manager, depending on what city it would be, I had to explain why Fed to local. And one of my strongest things for me was because I've policed throughout the United States in an area like San Francisco that's not easy to police in, to a large city like Los Angeles, and then a border city like Tucson, and then a city like Mississippi, Gulfport, Jackson, poverty in Jackson, different type of living throughout, and then having Houston as a local and then also as an agent. I was like, that I can articulate that to make me be a little bit different, but also be qualified, because I've seen the good and the bad from the local, state, and federal side in all of these different areas. And I can put it in one pot. And I'm from New Orleans, so I love gumbo. I put it in one gumbo pot and I can spit it out and make it taste really good.
I happen to love gumbo myself.
Well,
do you make it?
Yeah, I don't know if you come up to the 6th floor. I've been cooking once a week for the ladies up there.
Well, I'm gonna get in line soon. No, I love that's one of my favorite. That and jambalaya.
Well, we did have a moment on the stage, and I'm gonna stop right there. But we had a moment on the stage, he and I together.
Yeah, bags for badges. Yeah, there's videos floating around out there, and
that's one thing I do have to remember being the chief of police. Every single thing is recorded, because I got the pictures from New York. I got the videos from New York. They're like, hey, what are you doing on stage? And I was like, well, I was just making my chest jump, and
yeah,
he was able to make his chest jump, so we're having a chest jumping competition.
And it's all for a good cause.
That's it.
It's all for our people.
That was it, for raising money.
Yep, raising money for our people. You wanted to leave and go back to your roots in crime fighting.
Yes.
You on the outside, I mean, every department, good or bad, has a reputation. Whenever you're looking at Dallas as a potential landing spot, what drew you here?
I wanted to go to a major police department, and I had 114 counties under me at DEA. So it was a certain amount of responsibility that I had, and I wanted to feel like I had more responsibility for the next job. I had been offered a lot of private sector jobs making more money. It's just not me, man. I can't work a 9 to 5, sitting at a desk, 30-minute lunch, and just can't do different things. Like, it's not me. So I would turn those down, and I kept saying I wanted to get back in local law enforcement. So I got a map out, and I circled a few locations that I would go to, Dallas being one. And then when Chief Garcia signed his new contract, I put an X through Dallas. And I was like, oh, well, Dallas is off the list. And then when he announced that he was going to greener pastures for him, I took that erased it back. And I was like, all right. And the process started for me then.
What drew you? What was it about Dallas? I know it's a major city, but did you ever watch that TV show Dallas with J.R. Ewing?
Well, I did.
Yeah, okay.
That's going back to when
hey.
it would come on at 9 p.m.
Yep.
Right after or right before Knott's Landing. See, I
and
even
then
remember that, right?
And Dynasty.
Yeah, Dynasty. That was it. Then Knott's Landing came after that, I think. But yeah, I used to sneak and watch it because it was my bedtime, and you'll always know that. But look, Dallas has a reputation, and I wanted to go someplace that definitely had a reputation, and that was big. So it started fitting everything that I wanted, and I wanted it to be in the South. And then obviously anything in Texas was better for me because, as you know, Texas law enforcement, I'm sorry for everyone else that's listening, it's just a little bit better. And we feel that way. And along with the T code, that's always a challenge for someone from the outside. So I was able to use that to my advantage also. So Dallas was one of the ones that I wanted.
And you put in, and here you are.
Yes. And very few people, I think, probably in the department and outside the department thought I had a legitimate shot. I always felt like I had a shot.
No, I saw the finalists, and I was kind of going through them, and I went, DEA said, okay. And then I didn't, and then there was another one was the FBI guy. And, and I think you're correct that it was just.
We haven't had a Fed come in ever that I'm aware of. And so it was kind of easy to overlook it and say, well, we've got a guy that's been here. We got a guy down the street. We got a couple here or there. Then when the announcement was made, we were all like, oh, all right. I'll be honest with you. I was a little bit excited. When I saw the DEA behind it, working where I'm at now, I was kind of like, things are going to change, and we're either going to love it or hate it, but it's going to change. So let's prepare for change and be ready.
Look, but one thing, and this is what I said, and I said it on the interview, when you start out as 21 years old, that's in your brain forever because you're still learning. And I was a Houston policeman at 21. I just turned 21 when I started the academy, maybe about 2 months. That's in your brain forever. And those 6 years will never go away. So I was able to draw back from that experience and then tie it in with the Fed experience. And look, there's going to be some people that's going to be uncomfortable. I know there's some people that's uncomfortable because they've told me they're uncomfortable. And that's okay because some change is good. But overall, I'm looking forward, and I think we're going to make Dallas PD even better than what it was.
Well, we certainly like to hear that because we're going to hang around here a little bit longer ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Try to hang as long as I'm going to hang because this is my last job. I'm not going anywhere.
What is your 2-year plan? Then I'm going to get on to the 5-year plan.
So, it's always interesting. Everyone always wants to know that. Obviously, we have to recruit. That's number one. And another plan is Dallas has really been successful in crime going down. It's going down across the United States, but Dallas has done an amazing job with the crime plan. I'm going to keep the crime plan in place, but one of the things that I'm adding to the crime plan, and I think most officers have seen, and hopefully some of your listeners have seen it also, is we're really going to focus on anyone that has felony warrants to get them off the street. And Fugitive did an amazing job, and we're targeting the right individuals that have felony warrants. And we arrested 98 felony warrants in the first 30 days. And they were responsible for 700 prior arrests. So we got 98 people off the street that were responsible for 700 prior arrests. Look, we're going to add that to the crime plan, and we're going to continue to focus on that. So that's always going to be a priority for me. And I think that's a way to keep the community safe by getting those with warrants off the street. Look, you have a warrant. You shouldn't be walking on the street. And most of them are for aggravated. So let's get your butt off the street. Let's get you where you belong. But the other part for the 2 years, look, there's some culture changes that we have to have here and some morale changes. There's no reason for anyone to leave Dallas PD for $5,000 more to go to a smaller police department. It's absolutely crazy. And I actually just requested the data on how many of them want to come back. Because when you have a department like Dallas that has a reputation like Dallas, you have the specialized units like Dallas, I feel like you should never want to leave. Not for $5,000, not for $6,000 more a year. When you start breaking that down, that's money that you waste in a bar, right? So you shouldn't leave for that. So that tells me that there's something to do with the culture and the morale that we have to change. So I'm really going to work really hard in changing the culture and the morale. And I started it's an officer advisory board, call it the Chief Advisory Board, and where I'm really listening to the true workers, and I'm hearing them. And I've heard a lot of things that they've said, and what was so interesting, I told some of them there, and this is where all the Dallas officers can run out and find out who's on the board and find out what actually happened in the meeting. But it was interesting because some of the things that they told me behind closed doors, I had already recognized and noticed and already had those notes. So some of the things that I'm seeing, so now you're talking about 2 years. One of the things that I'll say is you can't turn the Titanic fast or it's going to sink. I have to turn it slow enough to where we're going to have some culture and morale changes, but where no one's going to jump off the ship. So it's going to take time, and it might take 2 years, but we're going to get there.
No, that is amazing because, I actually shout out Tyler Ramirez. He's a friend of the show. He was in one of your meetings yesterday, and I think y'all were in there, 2 hours at least? And there was a group, I don't know who all was in there other than him, and I asked him, I said, well, how was it? And he says, I really feel he was listening to what I had to say, and he cared about what I had to say.
You know what? I don't know everyone's names. Which one is he? Help me understand.
Well, the handsome, tall Hispanic guy with the Class A on.
Was that the big guy?
Yeah, he was pretty big. Yeah, he's pretty big upper body. Not like us, but he's trying.
Well, not sexy, but real big.
He can't make his chest jump.
No, heck, why wouldn't I listen to that dude?
No, right.
That's a big man.
Yeah. Well, he was impressed. He was impressed with whatever was said.
Well, look, and the thing that I wanted to do was really give them a platform to speak their mind freely, and they did that. They represented all the divisions extremely well, and when I put this committee together, I said, I need the best of the best. I need those who have experience, those who've done it. I don't need anyone who's not any good going in there. And I don't need a salesman, nor do I need a politician. I need someone who's going to tell me the truth. And boy, it got real in there. It got real.
To be a fly on the wall. No, Tyler, great guy and probably one of the better field trainers on this department. And he, if he wanted to, could probably go apply for any detective unit he'd probably get it. But he likes being an FTO. That's important to him to teach young officers.
Yeah,
you got to have that here. You can never have enough of them. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are very excited that you're sitting with us, that listen to the show, and they've been asking me, hey, when are you going to have him on? How come he hasn't come on yet? I said, he just got here. We dragged him up on the stage at Bags for Badges, but to do these shows and with your schedule, it takes time. And then we do the edits and all that. And one of a young officer, good friend, Marissa Levine, she's like, oh, my God, I can't wait to hear what he has to say because we really want to get to know Chief, who he is as a person, because people listen to this know we're going to pull it out of you. Yeah. And that's what I kind of want to get into, like,
look, you don't have to do a whole lot to pull it out of me.
Yeah,
look,
no, I
snuck
nudge you in
away.
a direction.
Look, I snuck away from my detail and my lieutenant, and I ended up at Channel 2 for 3 hours, and no one knew where I was except for Channel 2, and I was just hanging out in there. I mean, I actually had a great time.
You got to have fun.
It was like midnight, and I was like, hey, man, I got to go home. My day starts at 7 the next day, and I didn't want to leave. I had a good time.
You got to have fun in this role, boss. And it sounds like you're going to.
I will. Trust me. It's going to slow down a little bit right
now.
Your
morale's got to be up too.
Look, I'm looking forward to slowing down a little bit, but right now I'm taking meetings with everyone that calls from the community and from the law enforcement side. I'm taking every single meeting because I want to understand what Dallas is all about. And then once I get and meet with everyone, then it slows down a little bit, and that's when I'm going to have even more fun.
Well, look forward to that. Speaking of having fun, enjoying Comeaux time, can you talk a little bit about your family and your culinary skills?
Yeah, so I'm on my second wife.
Okay.
I have 2 boys. 27-year-old lives in Tampa, Florida. He works for Raymond James. He's super intelligent. I guess he got the smarts from his mom since she married me.
Wait a minute, Raymond. That's what the stadium was named after, right?
Right. Yeah, it's a financial institute.
Okay.
And he's a beast. He's Daniel Comeaux. Give him a shout out. He's a beast. And then I have my second son, who's another beast, Blake Comeaux, and he's a 3L right now. He goes to WashU Law School. He's about to go to Madrid to study overseas, and big shout out to him. He just got a federal clerkship that he's going to be doing once he graduates, and for a chief judge. And Las Vegas, Nevada. So both of my boys are absolute beasts, and I'm on my second wife, who is my best friend. We are two peas in a pod, and we love just hanging out. I know a lot of folks have gotten to meet her already, and she'll be on my side pretty much everywhere I go.
Sweet and beautiful lady that we met at the Crawfish Boil, and she has an energy about her. She was going around, and she was engaging more than you were in that crowd, and she was very personable.
Yeah,
very nice.
She was so lucky she was able to marry me.
I know.
I won in that deal. Yeah, she is amazing.
That's great. That's what keeps you grounded.
Oh, and she will ground me because I think I mentioned to you before, she will ground me because when I get home from a hard day's work, and sometimes it's 10, 11 hours, and she'll look at me right when I walk in and she'll say, "What's for dinner?"
With the gumbo. Yeah.
What are you cooking?
And you're kind of the chef, right?
Yeah. So, she likes to joke with me. A lot of my friends like to joke with me about my midlife crisis. And it wasn't a fast car. I mean, I already own a Corvette, but it's a 2012. I don't need a new one. I'm happy with that. My midlife crisis is I have a sickness, and it's grills.
Okay.
Yeah, it's grills. So
How many?
I mean, we don't need to go into numbers. Let's just say I have different ones for different occasions.
You got to have a different one. You got to have at least 3, right?
3. Man,
At least 3.
Man, if I only had 3.
You got charcoal, you got wood, you got propane for your easy days.
So I have, I have a Kamado Joe, which is my favorite. The Kamado Joe's my favorite ceramic grill, right?
That takes some time to figure out.
Yeah, look, it's a beast, man. It's great. And then I have open flame grill, like, kind of like the ones you might see at Buc-ee's, but I had it custom made. And
oh, man.
So, but when I bought that one, I was like, I'm really buying it as a fire pit. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, I had it custom made, perfect specs, and open flame cooking on it. Man, it's amazing. It's great. And then I have a couple other charcoal ones. I have a huge smoker, which, man, I can cook for half the department at one time. All right, it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's a huge old school smoker. Once that thing gets going, it's gone. And all right, let me tell you. All right, it's probably about 10 grills.
Good for you.
About 10 in
Good
the
for you.
backyard.
That fits
Different occasions. Some of them are really small. So if we want to do something, I'll throw it in the trunk and just pull it out on the side of the street and go to cooking.
You got to have a portable, right? So
Yeah,
you're getting there.
absolutely.
And you've mastered all of them.
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty
Yeah,
good. I feel like I'm pretty good. Everyone tells me my meat's pretty good.
Okay.
You grew up in
I'm not
Louisiana.
going to
Right?
touch it.
Let's get into it.
Please, I don't want you to touch
No,
it.
I won't.
Growing up in Louisiana, I'm gonna try to fix this.
All right, we got to get back on track.
Louisiana's legendary for food, right?
Yes.
You also went to California a couple of times. You've been in different spots in Texas, Arizona, Mississippi, Washington. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Man, I'm a crawfish etouffee, shrimp Creole guy. Like, I can't go wrong with that.
So you stick to your roots.
Yeah, I'm all about that. Now, when it comes to smoking, I'll smoke any type of meat, and you can't beat freaking beef ribs. If you can make that beef rib fall off the bone
Like a pillow.
and melt in your mouth, boy, I tell you can't beat that.
No, tri-tip or brisket.
Brisket.
All right, you can stay.
Have you had some barbecue here in Dallas?
So the answer is going to be yes. Yesterday was the first time that I had barbecue in Dallas, but and the reason I'm hesitating is I don't know where it came from. We for the meeting that I had with the officers, I treated them to barbecue, but I don't know where they bought it from. So it was good, but it wasn't. It was probably commercial barbecue, right?
Yeah.
I need to know that small barbecue shop that you go to where the meat's just so darn good. You're like, man, I got to come back. You might not want to hang too long, but you got to go back to eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They've
don't wanna
all
go-
got different areas.
Yeah.
Different areas have different, even within Dallas, right? You've got your Records Barbecue down south. You've got Baby Back Shack right across the street here. Off the Bone is amazing.
No, off the bone.
It's a nice
you
quick
gotta go
lunch.
over there. It's right next door to us.
You know what? I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to make Intel team mad. It's gonna walk from my house. I'm gonna walk from my house, make them mad.
Well, if you look up on their wall, that the owner's suite loves police, and he actually has a bunch of framed pictures of all. I mean, Roger Staubach. He's got chiefs that have gone over to take photos with him, and he hangs them up, and you'll feel welcomed over there. But the brisket or rib tacos, trust me on it, really good.
Brisket or rib tacos.
Yeah, they cut the meat right off there and put it in the salsa and the barbecue sauce and lettuce and tomato. Trust me.
All right, that sounds a little different. I might have to try it.
It's good. But
I've never made a rib taco. Like, where I come from, you just got to grab that big rib bone.
No, I agree.
And just go at it.
But it's
And
a neat little side thing.
If you cook that rib properly, your hand's going to have enough to fit on that bone because that meat pulls back so nicely.
Man, we're closing in on lunch here too, and now I'm starving. Well, we look forward to when you come back on the show. We're going to get a review of barbecue places here in Dallas.
I'm looking forward to that.
So you're sitting in the wellness unit, and this unit started in late 2021, and I have to say, I started in '97 in Dallas, and mental wellness was not ever touched on. You didn't talk about it. And if you did, you got ridiculed, or let's say if it was brought up, you'd probably get buried in a unit that nobody wanted to be in, and you won't be heard from. And that's where I believe stigma grows and festers and becomes attached to the mental health of officers and the first responder profession. We have a great mission here, and I'm not just saying that because my boss, Sergeant Omar Figueroa, he's sitting here with us, and you're in the wellness unit. But we have got a lot of momentum, and in the Assistant Officer Foundation, since this unit's been going, and since this podcast has been going, we have literally tripled in our counseling bill, money spent. And I believe that is a side effect of changing culture in this department. Can you give some thoughts on that?
Look, wellness is so important, and it was one of the programs that I really wanted to look at when I first came, because I feel like DEA has a top wellness program, the way DEA runs it. And I was talking to the head of our wellness program, and I was like, I'm going to need you to come down and look at this program and make sure it's running right and all of these things. Like, I had that in mind already. And then when I got here, I started doing a little deep dive into your wellness program. And I'm like, freaking Dallas has this right. Like, you are doing an amazing job with this program. And that's why it was kind of hands off. It was kind of like, all right, I don't need to come say a whole lot. But if there's ever anything I can do, I want to do it. But I think wellness is so important because we have so many problems. And it goes off of what you said before. When you come on, you feel like you're macho, you feel like you're invincible, and you feel like you should not talk to anyone if you have a problem. You have to figure out how to handle it. And that's so not the case. It's not true. And all of us need to understand, just as in 1991 when I started in law enforcement, it's completely different in 2025. We have to have a different mindset, and we have to take care of our mind. We have to take care of our body. And part of that is being able to go to a wellness program and feel comfortable and know and understand how it helps. And I'll tell everyone, I use the wellness program at DEA, and they're like, well, you never have to say it because we'll never tell anyone. No, I'll tell you I used it. I used the counseling. It mattered. I went through a divorce. It mattered. Going through a divorce is not easy. And no matter when you go through a divorce, you can't find the right time for it to happen, because it's not easy. And I use the wellness program for that. Both of my kids used our wellness program. And both of my, like I told you earlier, my boys are freaking studs. Both of them has used DEA wellness program. And even for the kids, and I'm not putting their business out there, like the youngest one still uses it. And he's like, it's just so easy to talk to someone. And that dude is sharp, man.
Well, it's maintenance on yourself. I mean, really, even if you if you may think everything's going perfectly fine, and it may be in some regards, but in a lot of other ways it is not. And to go in and talk to somebody is a counselor, a trained professional could look from the outside looking in, could see something within you as you're talking that you can't see yourself, and to give you some perspective and some guidance on how to look at things differently, pack things away differently.
Yeah, and look, part of wellness also is the medical side of it. Mm-hmm. And since I've gotten here, I know you've hit me up and coming through the program, I'm going to take a physical at Frontline.
Frontline, yep.
Look, it's a great thing. And that's another thing that we fail as officers. We tend not to go to the doctor unless we are really hurt or really feel something. But if we go more often, we won't get to the point to where there's nothing they can do. So, look, I'm excited about going to take the physical. Like, let's go. Sign me up. Let's do it.
Well, they give you the ultrasound everywhere. I'm just giving you a heads up.
Oh, boy. See, now he wants to make me a little scared to go.
No. You will walk out of there feeling you've been checked out top to bottom.
Well, that's good.
It's a good thing.
That's what I want.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm proud of the work we've done here. It's been really hard. We've had in this very room, we've had some very tough conversations. We've talked people in the rehab. We've talked people in the counseling. We've helped people get counseling for their marriage to save their marriages. And we've also talked to people in this very room about losing their marriage and their life changing. And also we've helped out officers' kids. And that's one thing ATO does. We provide counseling for officers, their spouse, and their children. Because it's all one big ecosystem, and we have to take care of that.
Look, through this wellness program, one of the things that I really want to see is the reduction of domestic violence amongst law enforcement. I want to see the reduction of alcohol-related arrests amongst officers. We have way too many of those two things, and it starts with the wellness unit. And I think you will help set a culture to improve that.
Absolutely. That's our mission, and in everything ebbs and flows in every part of life and also in this profession. And you're right. We're kind of on an uptick in certain types of incidents that it is our job to get education out there. But also what I'm asking you as a chief is, I know you support us, but your voice and your position and your outward support for our unit and this mission will trickle down to your other commanders to remind them that this is a mission and our people's mental wellness and their health are a priority.
You got that. I tell you what, my next command staff meeting, I will make sure I address it because it's so important. And I truly believe in it. And you can tell everyone listening, understand, I believe in it. Thank
you, boss. We appreciate that. And I know that many listeners appreciate it as well, because this unit, our logo is the owl, the Officer Wellness Longevity, and that was done by design because we all want to have a long and healthy life and healthy career. And I would imagine you as a boss, you want that officer to have it right here in Dallas, Texas.
I can't let you leave. I don't want you to leave. Look, that's one of the things we have to figure out, and it spins back to that culture of morale. We need everyone to want to stay, want to hire. We're creeping in Houston this upcoming week for a recruiting event, and I'm hearing we're getting really, really good response so far, because there's many out there that want to become Dallas police. We have some openings. Come on up.
Watch out, Houston. We're coming for you.
Yes, sir. We are.
So I want to give you a final question. This is speaking to all the officers that are out there, and also the people that are on the fence about whether they want to join the Dallas Police Department. Can you tell us, if they join this department and under your leadership, what can they expect from Daniel Comeaux?
Look, transparency and fairness. And every decision that I make, I'm doing it thinking I'm making the right decision. I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm doing it not for me. I'm doing it for the department. And I can assure that to every single one. Because one of the things I like to say, and sometimes it comes off not so good, some people might take it the wrong way, but I'll tell you, I have nothing else to prove in my law enforcement career, but I still got a lot to accomplish.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey, Mrs., hey, mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up on you.